Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here today on at the NoNameCon with you. Unfortunately, still online, so this year is not possible to be physically present with you. Of course, easier for the logistics. Let's hope for better in the next year. As Vlad mentioned, I'll talk about the Polish, not only incidents, but also the overall cybersecurity threat landscape, let's say so, in the country. And for you to understand why I will be talking about Poland on a Ukrainian event, a little bit info about myself. So basically, the answer is straightforward. Because I'm a Ukrainian who's been living for the last 6 years in Poland, and because I have connection to both countries and both business sectors, I try wherever it's possible to connect the dots and facilitate some knowledge sharing between the countries. And since for the last 3.5 years, as Vlad mentioned as well, I'm participating in this endeavor with BSG, Birja Security Group. I think it's no wonder that I'm with this mission of knowledge sharing between the AppSec communities of Ukraine, Poland, and whoever else is present here. No wonder I'm here with this talk. Logically, it would be probably to start with some overview of Poland. From the other side, it's pretty difficult and probably not thankful attempt to do some summary of a country in a couple of minutes. Even look for something much more simpler, right? Like human height. It's a known fact that human height is 1.70 meters, but when you talk with someone, most probably not 1.70 meters, there could be actually the reason why he or she would not agree because of own experience. And only people, I think the airlines strongly disagree with these statistics. To my feeling, the airlines strongly believe that average height is 150, actually, looking at the space they have in the aircrafts. But jokes apart, I'll try to give you some let's say, considerations that, in my opinion, would help you to understand what will be discussed later, but they are strongly my private opinion and, of course, are biased. So for you to remember this, not to treat this as a golden source of truth, I have this jokey slide while I'll be talking of Polish city translations, for like literal translations. Of course, they are not perceived like that, but if you look at the words, they are like that. So, Poland is a big country. It's like in the top 10 in Europe by population and by territory. It was even bigger, sometimes much bigger in history, but history was not too kind to Poland. And during the last forced update, which was World War II, it shrinked, it moved to, or shifted to the West. Population also was mishmashed and deported in some territories. And eventually Poland was occupied by the Soviets. But this series of tragic events actually gave some unique chance to the country, because afterwards it became a country with single nation, country with single culture, language, religion, and so on. And I think it's helped later when they ran away from communists and joined EU, one of the first. But so this similarity, it actually gives birth, or I would say it causes some patterned behavior in the society, in my opinion. And of course, patterns is good for attackers, right? Because you know what to expect from the people or predict their behavior. Despite this unity, there are still things that split Poles apart. For example, the traditional views versus liberal views, the right views on politics versus centric views on politics. And this clash gives some hot topics still in the society, like attitude to abortion, attitude to sexual minorities, attitude to church, and so on. And of course, all those hot topics or weak points are used by attackers or fraudsters to either polarize this society or to cause some emotions, whatever is needed for the successful attack. Okay, then I would say that on average, Polish people are rather close or even suspicious to someone who is not in the inner circle of their trust. Actually, you would say good for security, right? Zero trust in blood. But from the other side, the curiosity doesn't go away. And if you can get open information, you try to look through the loophole, right? What's happening to your neighbor. So this gives some demand for gossip or rumor type of news, I would say, or even some media content. People here are a little bit negative thinking. There's even the Polish proverb, which says, if you don't complain, you don't leave. So if you want to gain someone's trust, probably you should find for something similar or common to complain about, and you can kind of gain the trust quickly in this way. And also people are pretty pragmatic about money. So if you want to trigger the attention, I don't know, to encourage some actions, you probably should appeal to this efficiency. It will mostly work. I even joke sometimes that the most popular social network in Poland is OLX, so the place where people buy and sell things. And on a serious note, despite huge investment from European Union, Poland is still on the lower side in terms of GDP per capita, so it's kind of low-cost location for Europe. And together with the great talent, human talent here, it made a good basis to become a service location. So business processes are outsourced here, IT is outsourced here, shared service centers are created here. So this all is actually very much influencing the economics in the first, and then the society as well. It's at least in the cities where those services are aggregated. So service economy, closed mindset, probably no wonder you would expect that there should be interest in security, right? Overall. And yes, indeed. And on this slide, I'm showing you the ecosystem, I would say, of the information security or application even security. The three icons on the left, these are the media sources for the application or information security news. Niebezpiecznik, Sekurak, and Zaufane Trzeciej Strony. Actually, they're pretty popular. I have to say, I was even surprised to see the number of subscribers. Niebezpiecznik, which is most popular, it has more than 140,000 people currently as subscribers, so huge audience. Of course, OWASP is also a present and active organization, but it's more like professional audience. I don't enumerate here numerous commercial firms that are acting in this territory, as well as BSV, my company. But there is the umbrella that unites them, this cyber cluster, cyber made in Poland. So for those who are curious, you can just take it from there and research yourself. And I put a couple of labels of big events here. That's not complete list, but they survived at least with the pandemics. And actually, the conference will be happening next week, also in online format. So for those of you who are curious, you could join it and listen to what people talked about in Poland in respect of security. Okay, that was professional community. What about the broader audience? Of course, as everywhere right now, some episodes and films or series are happening that are connected with hacking or technology. There was even a whole speech on the conference about that, showing these bloopers where someone was typing email in the Microsoft Paint, or someone was dumping the data from mobile phone, and then it turned out that this is actually Nmap, so it doesn't dump data, and other mistakes like that. But there is one thing, one book I'm mentioning, because it's pretty realistic. I mean, it's still fiction, but it's realistic in its descriptions, and it shows and gives good overview of potential attack scenarios for the society. This is The Hidden Web, or Ukryta sieć, Jakub Szymalek. Of course, it's a pity that it doesn't have an English version yet, at least the last time I checked. And by the way, as well as those medias I mentioned, they're in Polish, not because people don't speak English, but because probably that's the kind of local identification. So in case someone of you will need more information, and it is in Polish, so it's a kind of blogger for you, please reach out to me, I'll try to help. But anyway, the book describes these attack scenarios. And globally, we see it happening. The attack on critical infrastructure, the political impact on elections, the personal level crime using the cryptocurrency and the darknet and so on. Interestingly enough, the book doesn't mention ransom as such, but it describes all its elements. So I don't know if it's on purpose or it's just when the book was written, it was not so popular. Anyways, let's see how those scenarios, which are on your screen, how they or if they actually happened in reality. I've taken the past year for my research of the incidents. So let's see what happened during the past year and how it correlates to this fiction piece. So I've split the incidents to three parts: state level, business level, and personal fraud or mass sector. And before we start, I have to say that I've used the public sources for this research, so no insider information. And for this reason, I doubt if these are really the largest incidents, maybe largest state actually unpublic. But for sure, it was like loudest incidents, those that people talked about in media and between themselves. So let's get started. First, state level. And I'll start with the real attack. I'll start from the end. Right now, it's known that this is done by a group that is called Ghostwriter, a group of hackers, probably which for sure are attributed to Russia and probably even have connections with Fancy Bear or Sandworm. The main goal of them is actually manipulation or disinformation. The target territory, this is the close to Russia countries like Poland and Baltic states. And what they do, they find their victims among people who are known, like politicians usually. They take over the accounts and then either do some misinformation through their accounts or do the manipulation by taking some data from the accounts and publishing it. And in the end, luckily, the Secret Service of Poland got hold of it. They really started treating it seriously after actually a year and a half of happenings. And now they investigated. There were more than 4,000 people on the list of victims in Poland, and assumedly, probably several hundreds of them were hacked. In media, there were a dozen or maybe up to 20 accounts that leaked something or were hacked, and something was happening with them. And from technical perspective, it was not sophisticated. Usually, it was due to bad security settings of the accounts of the mailbox, mainly. The manipulation was either small, like just undermining trust in some concept. For example, the woman who was supporting the women's strike, her account, this Marlena Malang, her account was hacked. Or as it happened with the recent one, Mikhail Dvorchik, minister of the government, he was used, and actually the content from his mailbox, which some probably are true, some are fake, were used for Belarusian propaganda. So Lukashenko used it to prove that Poland had the leading role in Belarusian opposition protests last year and this year, mostly last year. Yeah, so that's actually what was happening in the politics. No real highly confidential data leaked to public, in my opinion, at least from what I know. We don't know what leaked to the hands of the attackers, but of course, this manipulation in information area, it happened, and it happened a lot. What's next? Next, I will talking about several incidents which are not a result of attack as such, targeted attack. Rather, it's a result of some design flaws or some lack of due care, due diligence in the state sector. First are the examples I gathered around PESEL. And first, what is PESEL, right? It's the general registry, identification registry of people, something like social security number in the United States. And by design in this meaning, it's nothing wrong with that, right? The country has to somehow identify all its citizens and guests. As long as it's used as identifier, it's fine. But the issue is that it's often used as a authentication or even authorization mean. And then the issues happen, because even though it seems that PESEL is something private that only you know, but in reality, it's in a lot of places, and it's not that difficult to get someone's PESELs if you need to. So it's not a secret. It's pretty common that some files are encrypted and PESEL is used as a password. The example which you see here on the left is actually the COVID test results that were stored in a common folder, and each file was just encrypted by PESEL. Actually, Nebezpiecznik took this information and proved that knowing that the password is PESEL, you can break it in 50 seconds on a common laptop. So no rocket science here. And that was in the incident. Also, it's a big question if you can do something wrong with PESEL, like take a loan, for example. And the answer is yes, unfortunately, although not very often. But there are some services, not banks, usually banks do it more thorough, but some services that in favor of usability and to gain clients do it simplified to a bad extent. So like you provide the PESEL, you get the loan. If it's someone else's PESEL, then you get the loan, someone else owes money. It's like obviously not good. Also, there's a screenshot here. There was an attack which was caused by ability to produce a duplicate, SIM duplicate, just knowing the PESEL and the phone number of a person, calling the support and saying, okay, I've lost my SIM card, that's my PESEL, that's the ID of the new card, please link it to my phone number. You take over the phone number, you take control over the accounts that link to this phone number, and that happened. So that's reality. And one funny case, well, funny for us, probably not for the poor guy, who discovered that he has extra kit in his profile at the social fund. And of course, again, the root cause, because we talk about PESEL, was the typo. So when his kit has some medical treatment, when the results were entered in the system, they had a typo in the PESEL. And in this way, the foreign, let's say, to this person kit was attached to his profile. I think this guy spent a lot, I know that the person spent a lot of time to clean this up. It took more than 2 months, but we don't know how much more hours he spent explaining to his wife why he has the third kit on his account. Hopefully he managed to resolve that as well. Okay, that was the identification part, but of course there are true means that were designed to authenticate. And in Poland, it's not one something like DIA. There are several ways to authenticate yourself at state level or state digital services. First, you have the trusted profile, Profil. This is a kind of centralized directory of users, but in order to have this account, you have to do a physical verification of yourself, either through the municipality or it can be an identity provider like a bank that you use to log into this profile. Then you can use also the true electronic signature, which is also when created, requires verification of a person. And there is also the new ID documents, which have chips in it, and some other ways for authentication. Each channel is good, but you feel probably that because there are many of them, there can be a collision. And actually, there is a vulnerability and a collision between them, especially in the, or I would say, even in the trusted profile itself, because as I mentioned, you can have the credentials or use the identity provider. The issue is, or the behavior is such that if you have several accounts in several banks, as you see here on this screen, there are several banks, right? And all will be valid at the same time. One will be active, but all will be valid. And you can choose which one is active. And the issue is that when you choose a different one as active, the previous one is only notified, but not required to authorize this action. If you're lucky, you will notice the notification. If you're not lucky, probably your account will be taken over silently, I mean, not noticed. An account here means trusted profile, which gives access to all your tax data, medical data, and overall, everything the state knows about you basically is accessible with this account. Really powerful. And if you look attentively to these icons on the right, you'll see one which is called envelope. Probably didn't hear about such a bank because it's not a bank, it's a post office. And actually the incident that happened, the known incident, happened through envelope because post office does not verify your account in such a good manner as banks do. So usually, you imagine a post office, right? And Poland is not better than Ukraine. So some maybe old woman sitting behind the counter, you come and say, okay, this is my PESEL. I want to verify my bank internet account. Probably she even doesn't really know what it is. Okay, PESEL is PESEL, tick mark, it's done. So yeah, it's let's say risk here by design. Another interesting thing that actually is happening this year in Poland is the population census. First, it is mandatory. So you already feel the pain, right? It's like saying that elections are mandatory. Kind of nonsense, but it is. And if you don't provide your information in the census, even if you're not a citizen, if you just live in Poland, so the criteria is living here, you may get a fine. Fine is up to $1,500, so pretty significant. And there are two ways to submit information online and through a person who is called Rachmistrz, account master. With the online piece, from the security leakage perspective, there was none so far recorded or reported. But from the other side, as yesterday in his interview, Daniel Mistler told that if someone gathers a centralized database of something, he's doing it for the other actor who will steal it later. So who knows, maybe these census results will still be stolen sometime in time. Not yet, luckily. And here, the only thing that was interesting by design is that you could authenticate yourself with PESEL again, and some additional information, which is not difficult to find, like date of birth. And you will log in into the census. Actually, you can provide them the data. Of course, you don't get access to any data through such channel. You can just provide false data, which probably makes no sense. But the other interesting consequences that you can actually block this census for the person. So if you have some neighbors who listen to loud music at night and you know their PESEL, you just log in and start entering their census and don't finish it, never. And actually, there is no mechanism to regain control over this online submission. It just was not designed. So the only way is left for them is to go to Rachmistr, which probably they will not do because it's difficult. So you can spoil a bit their mood. And also, interesting thing is that because the parcel requires validation, there is an endpoint at the backend that validates parcels, and it's publicly available. Of course, as I mentioned, it's not a big secret. I mean, you can find parcels through other channels as well, but having a state-owned public parcel validator, which enables you parcel enumeration, I think it's not a good idea as well. And the other channel, which is getting or fetching the information by human, by this count master, this gave birth, of course, to some fraud based on that. Imagine you get this SMS like on the screen. Hi, I'm your account master. Please call me this number you call, and then you're starting to be asked questions, which is expected, right, about your private information, because that's what Census does. How to check if this person is really account master? So there was even an instruction how to do it, but you feel the pain, right? So there were cases of the fraud based on this, obviously. And there were more incidents at state level. Some of them are on the screen. I will not go into details of them because probably I'll be out of time if I will do so. Just as a summary. Summary is that on the state level, the security is not sufficient of the state services, probably because the engineers are underpaid, the technologies are obsolete, lack of ownership as always in the state-owned institutions. But well, that house is leaking, as in the Elvis Presley song. I think if Corson is looking currently at my presentation, he would like this conclusion, because it's pretty the same as in Ukraine, I guess. And one last example I have here, it's more from the commercial world, but it also happened with the city. The city of Oswiecim was ransomed. They had some servers with geodesy information, it was encrypted, and they were asked for ransom. They had to announce a tender. I mean, city probably cannot pay ransom officially. So they announced tender, some company won tender for decrypting the data. And no one never told how it was decrypted. So there's a chance that the company just paid the ransom to the attackers. And so the sad fact is that actually the money for that, and you see this 620,000 zlotys, it was taken from the other budget line, which was intended for road construction. So poor citizens of Oswiecim, they paid for the ransom instead of paying for the road, for the new road. So ransom is probably a good connector from the state level to the business level. The known case, as it was in English language media, that's why it's known. It's actually a known company producing the Cyberpunk and the Witcher games. It was ransomed. Yesterday, Oksana talked about it in more details in her presentation. I wanted to provide some basic info, but I think I'll skip, because anyway, you can listen to her presentation if you're interested and get more details. There was another company, a game company that was hacked. It's Margonem. The game is pretty old, but still it has a decent number of users. But even from this screenshot from the forum, you see it's kind of old style. The incident happened through breaking into the admin panel, so it's not ransom. It's probably again, the admin panel probably is pretty old, as the game is, and some private data leaked or potentially leaked. The company had to inform the users. Actually, I wanted to say that in business sector, companies do inform people about data breaches. That is required, or potential in data breaches, that is required by GDPR, and they really follow this requirement. But the funny thing is then when they informed this in this SMS which you see on the screen, they made an error in this URL shortener, and they added a extra char to the domain name. So when people actually click the link, whoever clicked, maybe some wise people do not click links in the SMS, but still, they actually landed on a fake website, which raised concerns significantly because, well, it looked actually as a second attack or the attack itself instead of just informing about potential breach. There was one case where it kind of seemed like a supply chain, and some people already pulled out the popcorn to watch it growing. The company is Hungarian, though, Dorsam, but it supplies software for banks, including Polish banks. And one of its servers, the test servers, was hacked, and theoretically, the attacker could inject malicious code or version into the build, in the CI/CD chain, and then it could be propagated to the banks using it. But everything ended up happily to users because it was just a hack for the crypto mining. So someone tried to mine coins on this server, and that was all. The next case is not that happy. I mean, here the leak of personal information did happen. Tauron is a supplier of electricity, one of the two biggest players on the Polish market. And private data and call records leaked, pretty big number of them. You see the screenshot of a folder that had numerous subfolders in it. But this story is interesting. It's kind of a thriller. You see the end of the story, or almost the end, right? This picture of the guy being captured by police, that's how it ended. But the guy actually looks like he's not that evil. He, according to his story, he was telling it later in the media, and that he got attacked by this server. It's funny to hear, but yeah, the server scanned his IP. Probably the server was hacked before, because why should the server scan it? And he been a kind of engineer, so he went on this server, saw the folder without any access protection, saw a lot of information there, and put it downloading, and went to a party. He got back from the party, probably a bit drunk or not a bit drunk, saw that he actually downloaded lots of private information of Tauron users. He called Tauron and asked to close the gap, and they kind of didn't believe him. Maybe he was not too firm, sounding not too firm at this point of time. He got angry with this attitude and wrote an email with demanding some ransom, or he would publish the data. Then in the morning when he woke up sober, he realized he did something wrong, but before he could do something with it, actually police knocked at his door. But yeah, actually he was let go because probably it was for Tauron too problematic to sue him, because then they would have to reveal the details why their server was keeping the information without access protection. And actually they did reveal some information. It turned out that this was not managed by them, but by the third party. And the third party were two small companies doing the call center services for them. It's an open question, why did they choose a big national-wide player, chose some small companies for doing some services. But let's call it just a bad vendor management practices, not to think more behind it. And probably Tauron will fix this later on, not to face such incidents. And the last slide is a couple of incidents happened in the healthcare industry. Obviously, recent couple of years, the attention to healthcare is increased, and to the services and remote, even remote medicine, and of course the remote downloading of results. So a lot of situations about the test results or some diagnosis leaked. Like in this case, again, unprotected folder on the server. And actually, even worse, it was indexed by Google. So it took some time for Google to clean up. Oh, not for Google, but for them to realize and to request the cleanup of the medical data, which were even available on the internet through Google. And the second example is that the error that the system provided was verbose. It revealed some endpoints, and it unluckily turned out that the endpoints are without authentication, and they leaked, again, medical results and actually healthcare data of people. So the conclusion is here that if the industry experiences a boom in a demand, it should also experience similar or even higher increase of attention to security. Otherwise, inevitably, the incidents will start happening. Okay, and personal fraud. The most, even here, it's not known, but probably the largest in terms of impact was the OLX scam. Thousands of people impacted, and I've seen information that more than 1.5 million zlotys actually stolen during this attack. And it's not even an attack, probably a series of attacks, because it was a distributed network behind it, not no single player. It was a single point of automation. There is a classic scam group that actually provided automation of bots and landing pages that are mimicking the shops, in this case, OLX. And it can be rented, so probably even you could rent a bot for yourself and try to fraud someone. The logic of the attack was very similar always. Someone showed interest into your item that you're selling on OLX. He said, okay, I'm buying. And then he's saying, okay, OLX will send you a link right now that you should use to get your money because they messaged me that they will do this to you. And then the person gets a link, everything looks like OLX, but in reality, it starts asking you secret information, not only credit card number, but also CVV. I've seen cases of being asked date of birth, mother maiden name, and so on. I'm actually curious why people do not see these red flags, that it shouldn't be happening, right? If you want to get money, you don't have to provide the data which actually needs to be available to spend money. But a lot of people are probably just impatient to get their money. They wanted to do everything just to get the money for the good they wanted to sell. As I mentioned, a real big scale of fraud. All the banks were alerting that this is happening. The OLX itself was alerting that it's happening. But probably during the half a year, Poland was like shaken by this attack. There were smaller attacks. One is actually it's probably connected with this ghostwriter. So on the personal side, it looked like phishing for your email accounts. And pretty straightforward, but also pretty effective. Something saying that the privacy terms updated, click now, or otherwise you will not be able to use your mail account. People clicked, and yeah, they were losing the accounts. It's not only Virtual Poland, which is WP, but I mentioned it specifically because it's the largest, let's say, Polish developed mail provider, something like Ukronet in Ukraine. And a lot of politician accounts, actually, which were hacked, they were hacked through personal mailboxes on this WP mail service. And the last slide, I decided to just combine it with the visualization in one slide, but tell you different stories. Mostly they are about receiving some information that requires you to act soon, otherwise you'll be in trouble. For example, you have like small amount of overdue, but if you don't close it, then your electricity will be cut off or your parcel will not be delivered. For you, it seems like, okay, I pay this even less than a zloty quickly and I get rid of the problem, typical social engineering methods. And yeah, of course, then the link is crafted. More interesting, more cases when you got calls. Actually, calls were from the number that really kind of belonged to the bank. So the number was spoofed. And the person who was calling you acted like a security department specialist. He was getting your trust because he kind of made it possible for you to avoid a fake transaction. But in the end, his conclusion was that you have a virus in your device, you have to install something like TeamViewer. And through this then application, your device was hacked, the control taken over, and your account used for the malicious purposes, I mean, bank account. So that was pretty wide scale, this InfoLine scam, let's say so. And there was one interesting corner case when there was a blackmailing of entrepreneurs. And why it's known that it's entrepreneurs? Because they are mail boxes which are in the company registry were used. And the message was like, we have some information or even some pictures of you doing something not good with children, I mean, of pedophilia kind of content. And if you don't pay us ransom, we will publish it. And I just think normally people would ignore this, right? Because normally it don't have nothing to do with pedophilia. But if this was happening, probably there was a corner cases when not numerous, hopefully victims, but that are not clean in this context. They prefer to pay rather than to be, compromised. Anyway, interesting fact, it's not visible here, but there were cases where such messages, SMS, were coming from non-Polish numbers. Ukrainians, I've seen Ukrainian numbers, Baltic countries like from Belarus as well. I just wonder if you have such a SMS from a number which is not your country, why would you click on something like this? But people clicked, obviously. And by the way, what's interesting, from time to time, such hacker groups, it's probably too loud word because usually it's a small scale hacking for a particular group of people, they are caught by police. So I would say probably once in a month, I see news that some group was revealed that were sending this SMS and a picture of, a bed with a lot of mobile phones lying on the bed connected with some cables. Okay, so that's probably it in terms of overview of the incidents, but I have a couple of more slides to fulfill the picture. One is about what the state doing about it. Cyber police. The cyber police exists for years, but this year, after this attacks on politician accounts, the state announced that it will be reformed and will be significantly powered by new hires. So they say they will be hiring about 1,500 people through the next couple of years, promising to pay good salaries, like up to $4,000 net, which is good salary for Polish market. But the reality in the same, I mean, news are promising, but the reality in the same time, in the very single moment that they announce it, you see this job description, oferta pracy, which says the salary, which is gross, is less than $1,000. So absolutely not matching the reality. It's not for cyber police, it's for some cyber department of one of the institutions, but nonetheless, the level of current payment, it's not comparable with the market. Also, there's this screenshot of the investigation results, which were kind of masked. I mean, the sensitive information is masked, but when you download this PDF, it's just additional layer. You just remove it and you have all the sensitive data, which actually was pretty unfavorable for the investigation because it has sensitive context. And lastly, this news about the cyber police, it got pushed for some fraud. But people started getting mails and they were saying, you are recruited, you've been recruited to Cyber Force. Please click this link and fill out your information. So even the good news raised the bad emotions about it because of this potential fraud. Well, I mean, fraud was real potential to you because a lot of people got this information. And also I wanted in the end provide a couple of statistics because we've talked through the particular incidents, but what's on the bigger scale? On the bigger scale, the statistics I could find, one is the checkpoint stats. Here, it's interesting that, of course, it's not the attacks, it's more of malware, right? Malware can or cannot cause an attack, real attack. But the interesting that the countries of origin of the malware files, you see that the most of it is the United States and other countries, but not Russia. In Poland, a lot of people, due to, as I mentioned, the geopolitics preferences or tastes, attribute things to Russia, even not thinking about it. Of course, this is territory of the servers from which the file comes, not the actors behind it. But still, my opinion that attribution to Russia is a bit exaggerated of everything. I mean, what's happening in Poland. In terms of type of malware, you see here the comparison to global trend. You see that botnets, for example. And by the way, Checkpoint doesn't have a separate category of ransom, and ransom is sitting in botnet category. So it means that probably Poland is more prone to ransom than on average with the global market. And also statistics on crime and crime being revealed and the incidents. On the left side, the statistics from police, number of prosecutions and successful prosecutions. On top, which are cyber crimes. On the bottom, which are somehow related to cyber crimes. You see this increase in the recent couple of years. Unfortunately, the level of them being revealed or investigated doesn't increase, only decline. There's also a difficulty with the starting the prosecution. You know that for something to be a crime, there should be a victim, a motive, the economic benefit of it, and actually a claim. So usually someone has to claim the crime, which not the case always for cybercrime, because sometimes it's not possible to gather all of these indications of cybercrime. And also Polish law, if you do a significant cybercrime, probably will get a couple of years. If you do a small robbery, you will get up to 10 years. So again, it's not yet balanced for the new reality. In terms of incidents, there are 3 certs under different lines of verticals of authorities. In Poland, I have managed to find only statistics for 2 of them. Probably a third one has something similar, and the trend is that the number of incidents reported is significantly bigger in the recent years. And the answer why is that is significantly in the bottom chart, because the incidents that are proven to be incidents, their number is much lower than the claims. So probably it's the effect of GDPR that companies now have to report the incidents, and previously they didn't do it. And on the but the number of real incidents also significantly grows, like twice in 2020 compared to 2019. And of course, it's partially due to the pandemic times and remote work. And on the right are excerpts from KPMG investigation or survey, I would say. It's interesting that number of companies that claim they don't have any incidents, it's getting lower. So a lot more companies actually realized they had an incident. And the portion of the companies that had more than one incident grows as well. So you see it's like 4 to 9 or 1 to 3 incident. 1 to 3 is actually doesn't grow, but 4 to 9 and 10 to 29. So numerous incidents, the portion of companies that acknowledge this grows. From one side, maybe it's a good thing, maybe monitoring maturity just grew. From the other side, well, of course, it kind of disappoints that there are conditions for such race. And yeah, probably there's a time for conclusion. And when I was thinking about conclusion, I thought I could do it in 2 different dimensions. One is try to compare Poland with the global trends. Unfortunately, I'm not a researcher as such, so I don't probably am not too knowledgeable about all global trends. In my personal opinion, if we compare Poland in these 3 layers, at state layer, although situation is pretty, understandable, the maturity of state services in terms of security is not good, but there was no real impact from attacks on the state level. So no elections were impacted, no critical infrastructure attacked. But probably Poland is just not the main target in the global world at the moment. Probably, attention is somewhere else. A business sector, to me, it looks pretty average. So struggling with ransom and other type of attacks, data leakages. And on personal layer, to me, it seems that Poland is more prone to such frauds. Probably one reason that could be, and I discussed with colleagues, is that the level of consumer services is pretty good. You can pay with different methods. There are a lot of fintech startups. There are a lot of online shopping and so on. Of course, it's all useful, but this variety of ways how to pay money means also a variety how to lose money or how to steal money. So that may be one of the reasons why the level of personal level fraud is actually, in my opinion, bigger than in some other countries. The second dimension of conclusion could be if you are in this environment, if you are in Poland as an actor, probably as a private individual or a company, what this means to you. And because Poland, as we just agreed, is probably more or less the same as in the global trend, probably the conclusion is the same for any other country. My recommendation would be everything that is external to you, wherever you put your data to, and it's controlled externally, just assume it's leaked, right? So don't put hopes that it will be in secret, and build a strategy from there. So just understand that you have to somehow mitigate leakage of this data. You provide your card number, don't keep all your funds there. You provide your PESEL, you have to understand that it's all kind of known to sooner or later, and so on. And when we would talk about something that you control, you have to learn how to protect your assets. So this way of thinking that I'm too small to be attacked, it doesn't work. Even if you will not be attacked by a ghostwriter, I mean, not targeted attack, you'll still probably catch malware or some automated attack. So you have to learn how to swim, or you will sink. So it's kind of the slide is trying to tell you, sink or swim. And whether you will swim, it depends on you. I think that's all I wanted to tell you, at least as part of presentation. Again, my contacts, how you can reach me at LinkedIn or through email. And I'm pretty open, as I already mentioned. If you have any need for information about Poland, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, if I'm not disconnected and you're still with me, then probably I'm ready for the Q&As, if there's any. I was not following the questions through the presentation. So Vlad, I need your help here, if there are any questions.
I see one question for sure. Let's switch to faces mode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So thank you for this presentation. I was following through, which is rare when you do a conference. So it's all very interesting, and I will join Kos, who was asking in chat. whether you are going to submit this to somewhere when you can present the same material in Ukrainian, because course finds this very interesting to Ukrainian speaking audience, especially concerning government identification, government apps, and parallels drawn with the DIA for sure. So do you plan to scale to other languages, in particular Ukrainian?
Well, of course, for me, no issue to do this presentation in Ukrainian or Russian, whatever is needed. I don't have any particular plans to submit it for an event, but of course, if you have any idea where this could be useful, I'm all up to it, because the more use I can get out of already spent effort, and I already prepared this presentation, of course, it will be better for everyone, right?
I hope we will have some suggestions. At least we have a last Kiev already planned this fall, yeah, as usually, a quarterly held meetup. So yeah, do we have any other questions? Do you have any other questions?
I understand that first speech after lunch is usually a speech when everyone still is kind of napping, so maybe not the right time.
There are two kinds of talks, you know. Ones that outline the topic in its complete entirety, and there will be no questions, and the one that provokes some thinking, and maybe there are some intended gaps to lure audience into some dialogue and communication. But as it was like a description of historic events, and it wasn't biased at all. You announced it in the beginning, but basically it was quite factual, and everything was quite factually correct. And there is data behind all this. So yeah, I think there might be no questions at all. But normally we have a couple of minutes when people come up with questions after talks. One question I wanted to put as a point for debates in a couple of hours, but actually I can burn it for your Q&A. So yeah, because you touched the topic. Just a little bit of background. So I am thinking currently a lot about the political situation, the global trend of like liberal democracy, and as you mentioned, Poland and many other countries actually, not only Poland, even in the EU, are currently moving, not moving, but slightly leaning to the right, and becoming less liberal democracies, I would say. So I wouldn't call them like not democratic or totalitarian countries, but if you look at what's happening politically in Romania, Hungary, Poland, you cannot just help but notice, yeah, that there is some right-leaning thinking, yeah, not like in the US during Trump, but still. So you mentioned that, and one of the ways liberal democracy can actually survive this trend is mandatory election. You know, so this is brought up a lot, like in the so-called intellectual dark web. There are going extensive debates about whether we should or should not mandate participation in election. Yeah, and you mentioned mandatory participation in a census, which is basically like operationally it's the same. Yeah, just not expressing your will, but you provide your factual data, hopefully factual data. And mandating anything like this, for me, it's basically the same. Yeah, like in terms of execution. So what do you think? Like maybe for the census, it's an overkill, but for a democratic process, would the risk, in your fair assessment, yeah, would the risk be worth it? Because for census, I don't know, I doubt it. And from your presentation, I guess you doubt it too. But if higher matters are at stake, like our democracy, would it be enough to accept the risk and go for it?
Actually, interestingly enough, a book that I just finished reading recently. The plot is about a country. Well, this actually a Portuguese writer, so it's kind of Portugal, but it's not named. And the citizens of the capital, they refused to vote. So the elections failed, and even the national emergency state was proclaimed because, well, there was this situation that the elections just cannot happen, and the government tried to somehow force people to do it. It didn't happen. I mean, in the book it failed. So in reality, probably this trying to force would also fail, but it's my personal opinion. Luckily, I'm not a politician to decide on this. If I would decide, I'd rather go a different way. And I would do some discrimination about who can vote, honestly speaking, because this movement which we
you live in Poland for too long.
Because
funnily enough, I have similar thoughts. Maybe it's too like right leaning, but yeah.
Yeah, I have no voting right in Poland, so for me it's easy to discuss the things because it has no consequences. But anyway, I would actually link the right to vote not to just citizenship, but to some play an active role in the society. For example, being a taxpayer. So if you are retired and you don't pay taxes anymore, you don't vote anymore. And in this way, probably the elections would be more forward-looking than the nostalgic-looking.
Yeah, maybe.
But just an idea, which I'm pretty sure will never happen because the discrimination is just like
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, like a nightmare for a politician because everyone will accuse anyone with such idea, and probably the career of politician will be over at this point. Even though I do.
Times change though. Maybe sometime this idea will be progressive, but I think that it would be more realistic to just discriminate not the right to vote, but the issues that can be resolved through voting. Because obviously we cannot vote on tax policy. There cannot be a direct vote on tax policy because it's silly. Okay, people are not educated enough to decide whether they will or will not pay certain taxes. It should be decided somehow by experts, and people just can decide what experts will decide. Which ones, I mean. Yeah, most probably we will move in that direction, and there will be a lot of political experimentation in the coming years.
Unfortunately, with the such trend that we have, we will quicker be in a situation where elections will not be held at all. I mean, some authoritarian approach to government, because we will fail to solve this issue quick enough. But who knows? Maybe I'm too pessimistic.
No one knows, but the time will tell. This is what it always does. The reason why I'm so interested in this and I'm inquiring your opinion, because when you demand something from the population, you basically need to provide means for that to happen, right? You cannot mandate election unless you provide convenience. If they have to stand up and go somewhere, it's already inconvenient. So that's why if it's mandatory, it should be so easy that everyone can do it basically by applying Touch ID to some digital signature in their phone. And many countries are looking at that right now, because otherwise they will not just maybe mandatory voting will not be needed. If it's so convenient and easy, maybe people will just vote because they can, and they shouldn't do anything more than touch a button for that. Who knows? Let's wait and see. There is some cheering. Nastya says it's a very interesting talk. Thank you, Andriy. And I think we have something in Q&A. let's address that. Do you know if CERT's cyber police from Poland and Ukraine are cooperating? Do they have something different in cybercrime types that they are investigating?
A good question. I haven't seen any news about cooperation of cyber police. I have seen some news of cooperation of usual police, and even there was this case when the former minister in Poland, who then was the head of Ukrzaliznytsia, was imprisoned. But that was a regular crime. For the cybercrime, I haven't seen this cooperation. And moreover, I think the level of enforcement in cyber area is pretty different. You've seen statistics about Poland, so thousands of crimes really been investigated. I don't think that in Ukraine we have such level of law enforcement in cyber area. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe times changed, but the last time I've actually seen or was interested in this topic, I think there were only a few cases who ever reaching the courts in the cyber area. So maybe
I'm not a lawyer, but I have many friends who would agree with you. Okay, Peter is referring to some Europol data. Yeah, there is some partnership maybe, but yeah, it's
formal partnership for sure. I think Ukraine and Poland have
there are memorandums.
Yeah, claim partnerships in different areas. But the question I think was rather about real cooperation. So no evidence in the news, at least, that it's happening.
Not publicly. I think if it's driven by someone as powerful as I don't know, FBI, there would be some global cooperation. For instance, if there is a network that is being synchronously arrested in both Poland and Ukraine, there would be cooperation for sure, but directly.
By the way, with this ghostwriter, there was a cooperation. Poland actually went for help to NATO about this attack. And I know that also through influence on political channels, the Telegram channel, which posted information from Dvorchik email account, actually was blocked. Although it popped up under different name and with a Russian-speaking audience in Russia,
for sure,
that's the other topic. But I mean, when it's needed, there is cooperation. But in this case, Poland went to the United States for help, not to Ukraine.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier, but the threshold is high. I agree. So I think that's it for the Q&A. Thank you very much once again for this course through recent events in Polish cyber scene, both legal and illegal. That was quite educating for me. Thank you very much. And we hope to see it again in Ukrainian somewhere around.
Yeah, thank you everyone as well. And have a good continuation of the conference.